Rain, heavy rain, a black suit soaked in water, a man kneeling on the wet asphalt, blood mixing with rain. His breathing is slow, controlled. Around him, bodies, 10 men, maybe more. Headlights cut through the darkness. Someone whispers a name. John Wick. The man slowly lifts his head, eyes calm, empty, focused. This is not rage. This is not revenge. This is discipline. A mind so controlled that pain becomes silence. A mind so sharp that chaos becomes calculation. But the real question is not how dangerous John Wick is. The real question is, how did a human mind become this unbreakable? Because John Wick was not born fearless. He was built. And every unbreakable mind begins with pain. Years before the world feared the name John Wick, there was only a man trying to survive pressure. In many interviews about the training behind the films, the team explained that the character's power was never just about guns or fighting. It was about mental endurance. The actor behind the character, Keanu Reeves, trained for months before filming, learning weapon handling, martial arts, and tactical movement to make every action believable. For one of the films, he trained nearly 12 weeks just to prepare for the intensity of the combat scenes. But the real transformation happened in the mind. His trainer described something interesting. Reeves wasn't trying to become the strongest man in the room. The goal was endurance and focus, high-volume workouts, minimal rest, circuits repeated again and again, sometimes nearly 1,000 repetitions in a single session. Not heavy weights, just relentless repetition, 1,000 small battles. That is how discipline is built, and that is the first rule of mastering your mind. The mind becomes strong the same way the body becomes strong. Repetition, consistency, control. But here is the psychological twist most people miss. The power of John Wick does not come from aggression. It comes from stillness. Watch the character carefully. In every chaotic gunfight, while bullets fly and enemies scream, his breathing stays slow. His movements stay precise. He does not panic. He calculates. This idea connects to a principle found in many mental mastery books. The ancient Stoic philosophy described the same idea centuries ago. Control what you can control. Ignore what you cannot. When chaos surrounds you, your mind must remain still. That is why John Wick never wastes movement. Every step is intentional. Every bullet is measured. Every decision is calculated. But discipline is never born in comfort. It is born in humiliation. Every strong mind has a breaking point. For John Wick, the story begins with loss. A quiet house, a dog, a small piece of hope left behind by someone he loved. Then one night, arrogance meets consequence. A group of men break into his home. They take the last thing he cared about. They think he is weak. They think he is retired. They think he is harmless. That moment is important because the most dangerous people in the world are not the loudest. They are the ones who have already lost everything. Pain removes fear, and when fear disappears, discipline takes control. But here is something even more interesting. The mind of John Wick is not just violent, it is trained. To play the character realistically, Reeves trained in judo, jiu-jitsu, weapons manipulation, and tactical shooting. These skills were drilled repeatedly with stunt teams and trainers so that the movements look natural rather than staged. This matters because mastery always looks effortless from the outside. But behind that effortlessness, there are thousands of invisible hours. Training, failure, correction, repeat, again, again, again. That is the second rule of mastering your mind. Precision comes from repetition. Now the story reaches its legendary peak, the moment that defines the identity of John Wick. A single line spreads through the criminal underworld like a virus. People keep asking if I'm back. Silence. Then the answer. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. That moment is not about revenge. It is about identity, a man remembering who he really is. And this is where psychology changes everything, because most people do not fail in life due to lack of intelligence. They fail because they forget who they are capable of becoming. Fear erases identity. Pressure erases confidence. Failure rewrites self-belief, but discipline restores it. Yet every legendary rise hides another truth. Even the strongest mind gets exhausted. Even John Wick bleeds. Watch the films closely. He is always injured, bruised ribs, cuts on his face, broken bones, still moving, still fighting, still calculating. The pain is visible. The weakness is visible. But the mind remains controlled. That is the third rule of mastering your mind. Pain is temporary. Focus is permanent. In real life, the training behind the character shows this principle clearly. Trainers who worked with Reeves often said the same thing about his work ethic. No matter how intense the session became, he stayed focused on improvement. He brought the same attention to every part of the preparation, whether he was on the gun range or in the gym practicing movement and endurance. Not ego, not arrogance, just commitment. And commitment is what separates professionals from amateurs. But the most powerful transformation in the story happens after destruction, because eventually every warrior falls, every strong mind faces exhaustion, every legend faces doubt. That is the moment when most people quit. But the difference between ordinary people and legendary minds is simple. Ordinary people stop when it hurts. Disciplined minds adapt. They evolve. They rebuild. That is the final lesson hidden inside the story of John Wick. Mastering your mind is not about becoming fearless. It is about becoming controlled. It is about training your thoughts the same way fighters train their bodies, through repetition, through discipline, through focus, through pain. Because the real battlefield is not outside, it is inside your head. And the moment you master that battlefield, chaos loses its power, fear loses its voice. And like John Wick standing in the rain, surrounded by enemies, you remain calm, focused, unbreakable. That is the moment you realize something powerful. The world never feared John Wick because of his weapons. They feared him because his mind was impossible to break.